Welcome to the Future Thinkers podcast. I'm Mike Middlemen.
And I'm Yulia Ivanova. And this podcast is all about the future.
Hey guys, this is episode number 33 of the Future Thinkers podcast. And today we're interviewing Vince Meens. Vince was introduced to us by a mutual friend. He's an expert in blockchain technologies. He's got a lot of experience with starting businesses, raising funds. He's got a lot of really interesting ideas about the future, especially as it relates to blockchain. So we invited him to come talk at one of our events in Plovdiv, and he pretty much showed up on a moment's notice and gave a really excellent talk and then hung out with us for the weekend. And we had a lot of really interesting talks over the weekend. It was a lot of fun. So I hope you guys enjoy this. We really did. And it's one of the few episodes that we've actually been able to record in person. So that was also cool.
And as always, before we get into the show, I want to say thank you to all of our recent patrons and donors. In particular, Daniel Suet made a very large donation unexpectedly. Thank you so much. That was kind of crazy, actually. Also, I want to say thank you to Jeff, Peter, and Apostle. All of you guys rock. Thank you so much. And for anyone else who wants to support us, you can go to futurethinkers.org/donate to find all the different ways that you can support us. All right, let's get into the show.
Vince, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you and nice to be in Plovdiv. I'm very excited to be here and see all the energy about the startups that we're setting up here. So very happy to be here.
You, I think, are the third person we've ever interviewed face-to-face. So this is kind of cool for us, too.
Oh, I hope it doesn't disappoint then. So, okay.
So we've had a lot of interesting conversations in the last couple of days. You arrived yesterday and we had a blockchain meetup and we did some presentations and stuff. I spoke, you spoke. Arik Dromi, our last interview, also spoke. And we talked about a lot of interesting things. So what was most interesting to you out of the event?
I think blockchain as a whole, it's one of the first technologies that's going to connect us really instead of keeping us separate. As a follow-up to the internet where basically we had the infrastructure to connect, now we need to have the reason to connect. We need to have the logic, we need to have the mapping of how we're all related and how we're all valuable to each other. And I think for the first time as humanity, we can start really acting like this collective intelligence and start doing super cool things.
What was the conversation today that we were having where you were talking about your hesitations about the blockchain and then you said something about it being a logic thing?
Yeah.
So what was your hesitation about the blockchain, Yuvi?
Oh, not so much a hesitation, but my point was that there are always a percentage of humans who will want to, colonize and invade things and kind of stick their own agenda into every technology. So how the printing press, people thought that it was going to liberate everyone and, push us into an enlightenment age. And to a degree it did. And then the same happened with the radio, and then the same happened with the internet, and people had super high hopes. And now people have really high hopes for the blockchain. So I wonder if, in a few years when it becomes mainstream, if it'll get corrupted.
I think the main thing to grasp about the blockchain is that all of the previous technologies, like the printing press and the radio and internet, are basically replacements of the previous infrastructure to communicate on a large scale all around the world. And if you compare it to a body, it's mostly the infrastructure that gets updated every couple of decades. So it's like the blood vessels and the nervous system. But the brain and the logic and whatever, that's always something that we as humanity kept private within organizations or within individuals. And it's not something that we really shared as humanity. And I think now blockchain, if you compare it to the human body, is the first time that we get like a collective brain, a collective logic and a collective memory of everything that happened to reason with that logic for the future. So I think it's really a new technology for the first time. And I think it's something super cool if you look at it and you zoom out, that as humanity, we're very comparable to the cells in our body forming us as a human. I think us as humans, in our turn, together form this giant organism called humanity. And if we have a collective brain and collective logic and we can start putting that to use, we can do even greater things than we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm. It's like the blockchain could become conscious.
Definitely. I think in the end, it's just the mapping of a lot of small decisions that you can check with the history and with sensors that are all around us or whatever, that's going to create this never-ending logic of improvement. And the cool thing about the blockchain is that every one of us with just a couple lines of code can put something out there to benefit all of us. And it will be out there and it will be maintained, and it cannot be taken down because it's out there. It's a one-way street. You can only add things to the blockchain. And I think in the future, if we start seeing the power of all of us just sending something out there and it can impact us even after our lives or whatever, it's going to do a lot of good in the world. So,
what do you think are some of the more obvious and basic applications for blockchain coming up?
I think one of the important things I see myself is consumer behavior with the stuff that we buy. I think we live in a very consumer-based society where we buy products instead of the story behind products. We buy our clothes from chains where people work who are not the original founders, so you get like a distance from the things that you buy. I think with blockchain, because you can see the whole transaction history of how a product came to be, you can go back literally to the root of everything that you buy. If you drink a coffee, you can start tracing the farmer that actually harvested those coffee beans, the person that grinded it, and so on. And you can see the full story of everything that you buy. And the other way around is also that the people selling you things, they can see your story. So it will be a world where we can start seeing the impact of everything that we do, and we can also feel responsible for everything that we do because we can see the relations between everything. So I think supply chain transparency and behavior transparency, those are like the big things. I think it's also TVs are getting smart, cars are getting smart, and so on. I think an interesting aspect of the blockchain is that we can put wallets into anything around us. So not just humans, not just businesses, but also that car, which can start doing transactions. It can start paying the road that it drives on. It can start paying to the car in front of it to go to the side. It can start paying its own parking ticket and so on. A lot of things will start being real transactions that are recorded that are now just separate things happening. And I think that's something really cool that's going to happen.
There seems to be sort of like to imagine that sort of scenario, you need to go through some sort of mental shift. What do you think that shift is that the common person might be able to go, okay, that's normal, a car paying to a...
I think now, because just the administration of all these transactions takes too much work. Like if a human needs to enter all these things, it's something that you think it's no point in recording all these things. But because with blockchain, the wastefulness of recording a transaction is so easy, you can start registering a lot of things, and this can be a sensor, this can be a door open, this can be a light shining on someone, and the phone that is under the light bulb will detect that that person is sitting under the light bulb, and this person can start paying for this light bulb instead of the person that owns the room, because we can start tracking all the usage of all these small things where we think it's just too small to track. We're going to track it and we're going to make it more honest. It's just like now I'm visiting you guys here in Bulgaria, but I pay taxes in the Netherlands, even though I'm just 2 days in Bulgaria. But if it becomes all connected, I can pay taxes very easily just for these 2 days in Bulgaria, because I use your infrastructure, your facilities, and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were having a conversation with a friend actually yesterday. I think it was about solar panels. In Mike's presentation, there was a bit about how with blockchain, if somebody has solar panels on their roof, they can sell excess energy directly to their neighbors or to their city without going through the municipality or through a big power company. And our friend was like, oh, but I don't want to deal with making deals with 5 neighbors. It just sounds like more work. But actually what people don't realize is that you can preset contracts that are going to be automated and you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly.
And you're cutting out a lot of bureaucracy actually by doing that.
By cutting out the middleman, which is we typically think of as the middleman, we're actually like adding more work and more decision making to the individual. But no, it's an automated system. It's just there's not a single person benefiting in a monopolistic setting. So I think that was interesting that even he, who's a bit more familiar with the blockchain, was still like, well, there are good things with middlemen as well.
Yeah.
But I think the bureaucracy aspect is that it's not like you need to go to your solar panel and monitor and track some numbers, put it on a marketplace or whatever. It's with the blockchain that your solar panel itself will do the transaction and will find the person buying it from you. So the whole hassle will be gone to start sharing all our overcapacity of everything that we have around us. And I think that's going to be a big change of ownership. That we need to drop ownership in a way because we also had the discussion about, for example, your phone bills, where you have your extra minutes and your extra data. That in the future you're going to share this with other people, that they can use your remaining space. I think it's going to happen with most of the resources that we have. It's now we all overproduce, we overconsume, and we all have duplicates of a lot of things that we're not using in a certain moment. And it's time to divide it more even. Take the example of a car again. Instead of parking it and not using it, the car could be used by someone else and then generates money instead of cost money. And I think we need to look at a lot of things that we have in society with this model and turn it around and start utilizing it.
Yeah, it's one of the ideas actually that we had for the incubator, where we're going to have, we will have to buy the equipment, like the VR setups and different things that people can come in and then use, and hopefully incorporate the blockchain so that it tracks usage and people can just pay microtransactions for the small time that they were using this thing, instead of having to go out and buy their own, VR goggles, which are quite expensive.
I think in the future, because it becomes so easy to register who is using something at the moment, we need to start seeing things literally in the minutes or hours that they're used. And now we divided the house ownership into rent, where you break it in units of a month, and then we have hotels where you break it into units of a day. You have meeting rooms where you can rent it by the hour. But I think you can apply this to almost any space that you use, or any tool that you have, or any asset that you have. If we have the tools to administer, to register even just a couple of seconds of usage, then even a washing machine can have 1,000 owners at the same time if they all do it sequentially. And this becomes easy thanks to the blockchain technology.
I've even thought of speaking to all of our neighbors in the building about collectively getting a Roomba, so no one has to sweep the floors anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, what's the point of all having the same stuff? It's a crazy realization, and it comes forth out of this industrial mindset of producing products constantly and pushing everyone to buy the same things. Like a lot of people, they have a ladder at their home and they only use it maybe once a year to climb onto something, and it's pointless to have the ladder. And with the washing machine, I think it's similar. You have so many items in your building that you can share easily. You just need the simple tool to take the hassle out of it, of sharing it, and see the responsibility if people use it and so on.
If I'm not familiar with this sort of thing, how do you connect the objects that you're not using to the blockchain?
I think we need to start bringing everything online, like the Internet of Things thought, so that Roomba should also be a unique identifier on this blockchain that I can do a transaction to buy the right for X time, and then it gets tracked, for example, where the thing is. So if the next person wants to use it, he should be able to see instantly that it's at the neighbor's place 2 doors up. It should be able to see okay, if something is broken, that the last person did that. But everything should have this unique identifier and be registered and start interacting with the blockchain.
I think a lot of people would think, what are the privacy issues with this kind of system where everything knows everything about everyone?
Yeah, the cool thing about blockchain technology is that you can have so many different addresses to do transactions with, that you can create a new address every time. And an address is basically like a wallet within a wallet. So for every address, you can decide for yourself, hey, I'm going to announce to the world that this is me. Or you can say, I'm going to remain anonymous with this. So maybe you will just have a wallet for the Roomba that cleans the rooms, and you will keep it separate from the transactions that you do for your food or the transactions that you do with your business. So people don't necessarily have to see all the relations between all these things. You can easily separate it and keep it anonymous. Yeah.
You talked about reputation systems on the blockchain, where based on your reputation, maybe the price of things changes. Yeah. Or your status in a neighborhood changes depending on how much you contributed to that neighborhood.
Yeah, I think now the supply side always determines the price. A cup of coffee is always a cup of coffee. And you go to a coffee place and it's the same for you, for me, and so on. You see a lot of businesses, they start building these loyalty programs where you can get an extra cup of coffee if you bought 10. But I think that's just the beginning. I think it can be done way smarter. Again, an example of a car where the car will track how you drive, if you drive polluting or if you drive eco-friendly. And if you then go to the gas station, the price can be different. If you use your energy thoughtfully or if you waste energy, it can be a high price. It's going to be the same in the supermarket, where you're going to look at the products and see if they are sourced from local farmers. And if then as a person you always buy from local farmers and thereby support your local economy, things might become cheaper than actually buying them from like in the Netherlands, a lot of people eat avocados and they always fly in from Chile on the other side of the world. And I always think it's ridiculous that for less than €1, this thing could board a plane, fly to the other side of the globe and be on my plate. I think it's an insane thing that we find this normal, and that actually the apple that I buy from the farmer down the road might be more expensive than this avocado from Chile.
This actually really relates to the thing we're talking about with implementing a basic income on the blockchain, and how one of the ways you could do it is implementing a carbon tax. And the carbon tax would be charged every time you do something that, it pollutes the planet.
It could be that, I also gave this example yesterday, that a piece of fruit that gets plucked from the field, it has a certain base price, and that the price becomes variable based on a lot of factors. One factor could be, for example, that it becomes stale or less fresh, and that the price decreases over time. But you could also put a geo-location as to where it was plucked, and that the more it gets removed from the place where it was plucked, the price increases. So you can start incentivizing to consume things and grow them locally, for example. I think that's in the future a way to trigger people to become more aware of consuming local things that don't impact the environment that much. Or that you see that the supermarket, if it wants to source products, it can see in the supply chain, in the blockchain, how many transportation links were in between, like trucks and boats and airplanes and whatever. And it can calculate, because the geolocations are tracked of all these points, how much pollution was created to get this thing there. And you can start making logic around that. And I think it's going to incentivize a lot of good behavior and more honest local buying from consumers.
Yeah, I find that concept of creating the right incentives really fascinating, because right now in our world, the incentives are all wrong.
Yes.
We have a lot of incentives around making money and keeping things secret in business so that nobody can steal your process or whatever. But if we incentivize different things, it could really change how we live.
Yeah, I think this has to do again with how the money system was built, and that now if I transact €100 to you, the value is seen as this €100, so you feel powerful that you have this note of €100. But with the blockchain, it's also registered that we did that transaction for a certain reason. So you get like this account, like I bought this from you. And once you start spending it, all the transactions that will be done with that €100 will be linked to this. So you will become more and more aware of that your €100 is not just literally that money shifting, but it's also connecting a certain network with a certain network of other transactions in the future and in the past. And that builds more value over time than the actual €100. So it becomes in the future less and less valuable to hold this money, because if you hold it, there is no connections being made with the money. And you might be poor in the future if you hold on to your money instead of spending it, because spending it becomes the smartest thing to do, because you can connect more reputation to you. And you should start incentivizing people to, for example, spend money only in their area or only in their friend group. And that money, for example, I also discussed it yesterday, like it gets an expiration date, just like food. And you say like, okay, here you have €100, but you need to spend it in your neighborhood. And if you do that within a month, it will become €110. I don't know, something like that. And if we all do this, we start incentivizing local again. And I think that's a counter movement that we need in the world right now, where everything becomes like these huge hubs of global centralization. And you see this with cities, you see this with food production, you see this with banks. Everything is centralizing. And I think thanks to blockchain, you can create a counter movement where local becomes the most logical thing to do. And therefore you get a way more evenly spread out across the world of a lot of resources, a lot of systems. And I think it's a better world.
I like how blockchain makes us rethink how we think about value exchange. Like, if someone posts something interesting or entertaining or funny or something on Facebook and you give it a like why is there no value exchange in that? Exactly. That could be another thing. Just the constant stream of content exchange could be something that you can be like, oh, here's a micro fraction of a token or something.
Yeah, and again, also in the music industry, if you buy music, we also had this industrial mindset of creating a product out of music. Yeah, so we created like a CD. which was like a plastic box with a plastic disc in it. Actually, when I buy the music, I'm buying this plastic box with the plastic disc in it, and I'm not buying the artist and so on. So with blockchain, because you start tracking who buys it, it will become more and more a feeling like, hey, I'm investing in this musician to make more music in the future, and I'm consistent in supporting this artist. Like with the CDs, nobody tracked who the fans were. So with blockchain, if I as a musician can see that you guys always bought my music as one of the first people, I can see you're my true fans because you were always first in line to buy something. So next time I give a concert, I say a concert ticket is €100. But for my first fans that always bought this and this and this, I can list qualifications. It's free to come because you're my supporters, you believe in me. For people that don't support and believe me, they can pay money. And I think you will get gradually a shift towards that. And you already see this with hotels now, for example, where they ask to implement your social media following to get a discount on your booking, for example. The reputation will become more and more valuable, and the more relevant your reputation is to the other party, I think money will gradually move to the background and be less needed. And it's an ultimate form of barter, maybe in the end. That money was just like this in-between mechanism because the value didn't match up. But with the blockchain, you can always find value in this giant network of nodes of relations that were mapped or whatever.
Yeah, I think the most interesting and obvious ones are the finance, the interacting, that sort of stuff. But I'm really curious that what you've seen in other industries interacting with blockchain, like virtual reality or artificial intelligence or anything like really groundbreaking on its own, then coming onto the blockchain.
Yeah, we also discussed like a creepy thing that, for example, if artificial intelligence becomes so smart that it can literally see, for example, all the chat conversations that you had, and it can really read up on how you communicate and which things you reference and so on, and it can also instantly read those books because a computer can read your book within a second. It can become so smart that it can become like a personal assistant that is literally like you, for example, based on everything that you did in the past, and can facilitate you to focus more and more on the good things high in the Maslows pyramid and drop all the basic things in the lower levels, because it gets automated and predicted and catered to you in a way that probably would take you a lot of time or some time, but it gets prepared for you because your behavior becomes facilitatable based on your past behavior.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Actually, we touched on this with our previous interview with Arik, that AI will become part of us, and it will be like an external processor processing all this data and then feeding it back to us, say, oh, I read all of your conversations with this person and I appropriately responded on your behalf, just so you know. And now you know, and you feel like you responded to this person, but actually it was this AI doing it on your behalf.
Yeah, and but it's also a very dull task, like paying your rent or whatever. All these repetitive small things, like doing groceries, and at some point it will start monitoring like your basic needs and will take care of it. So you can focus your time on higher things, so to say, and higher in the sense of more towards art or learning or self-expression, and all the basics will be taken care of by the smart software or this automated version of all these minor tasks that you normally do. And I think that allows us more freedom to focus on things that we find beautiful.
I love the idea of this, like a second you that's watching your behavior, because it knows what your goals are. You don't know your own faults or the things you do wrong in conversation or whatever. And this thing could just be watching you all the time, and it's you. It knows how to speak to you. It knows how to critique you. It knows what your goals are and how to help you improve to reach your goals.
It can also be very practical things, like just coming here and needing to look for an airplane ticket and whatever. And just by monitoring my own conversations and seeing that I have this intention of visiting you, already cater to me and put the airplane ticket in place and know that I need to transfer from Sofia to your place, and really putting it on a plate so I can just focus on things and spend my time better than just looking up all these things or whatever, and really see it as an empowerment of yourself to gain more focus in the things you want to do. That's the beauty of logging all these things, and people shouldn't see it as a privacy threat, but more as an empowerment of themselves, that this is all out there. And the beauty of the blockchain is that it's decentralized and not like a government having all this data on you. No, it's you and you embedding software on the blockchain to empower you, and not so much that you give it to a company or an organization. No, it's just you. You are the owner of it, and no bad can be done with it unless you allow it.
What about things like virtual reality? Anything like that you see could be an interesting combination?
Definitely. I think a lot of people can become aware of their whole impact in the world. Say, for example, if I can see where I buy my products, or if I can see what impact I have in my surrounding, I think virtual reality can become a great visualization of this whole network, where it's very difficult to see this impact on a 2D screen, or it's very difficult to see it in a mapping of statistics or a huge Excel sheet. I think virtual reality is probably the most immersive way to visualize everything and to consume. As humans, we are experience oriented, and I don't think we are made to read books and all this dull methods of transporting information. I think we're more experienced people, and feeling it, seeing it, hearing it all around us. I think it's the most natural way to interact with all this, and we can do way more things than just on a computer screen or the traditional ways.
It's interesting, actually. It reminds me of the conversation we were having today when Mike was saying that there were so many protests during the Vietnam War, partially because the photography was so widespread and people actually were getting photos and videos from the war, and they realized what kind of impact it was having, and the reality of it just hit them and drove them to do something about it. Whereas in the wars before, people just didn't really have an idea of how devastating it actually was.
Yeah, I think this is also about connection again, that because you can relate to another country, all of a sudden you start feeling the guilt or the feeling that they're actually not that different. And that's why I think it's very important to start also get this feeling with any product or service that you buy, that it might come from this farmer in Iraq, or it might come from this company in Venezuela or whatever. And you start seeing, hey, I'm interacting with this global economy, and invading this country is stupid because my coffee comes from here and my financial service comes from there. And actually, we're all connected, and it's not like this is some standalone entity where we just invade and do something bad. No, it's literally impacting me because part of my life is connected to that area. And part of the impact that I have impacts that area because I paid this company, something happened there, and I feel attached to that country. I think the other interesting thing now is that with blockchain, it's the mechanism of truth, and the truth is set in time and it cannot be changed. And I think for countries to go to war, usually they invade a country and they try to change a lot of things and try to hide how they made that change and put it in their favor and whatever. And I think thanks to blockchain, it becomes super difficult to rid out of the local companies doing something and putting in the companies of the invading country locally, like they do with all the invasions, because you can transparently see like, hey, this is where they messed up and this is where they were responsible for doing this. And people will become more aware of this and take action and not accept it anymore as a logical step. And I think if you start feeling the connection that all these people around the world are actually, like with the 6 degrees of separation, I think it's a very good example. The 6 degrees of separation will happen in any aspect of our life, not just the connection with other people, but also the connection with other places, with other things, with other ideas or whatever, because you will see this huge mapping of how everything is related to each other. Like Wikipedia is just a database, but once we start seeing this map and we start seeing the impact of this subject impacts this and these people and this group and so on, then we start really feeling connected and start acting together. I think that's a good basis to do things that are bigger than ourselves. So
That's a good transition into my next question, which is, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would you work on?
Me personally, I think the cool thing that blockchain is going to achieve is that we can do things also distributed, because it becomes super easy to take like a giant piece of work and divide it amongst a million pieces. And we now have a tool to piece all these puzzle pieces together and achieve something. Like in the past, you had things like building the pyramids or other great projects that took more than a lifetime to build, or that were more complex than a human would comprehend. I think we're now moving towards this distribution of work so that we can do projects that are too immense for a human to even comprehend or direct. And I think most projects that are now happening, a human is still sitting on top, like building a skyscraper. It's still a project of just a couple of years from drawing to building, and still a human can supervise it. But with blockchain, we can, like for example, the interplanetary stuff, like Elon Musk will now start with it. maybe it will take 2 million people to achieve a full society on Mars. And it's just a matter of dumping all these tasks on the blockchain in small enough things that together they will start forming this huge plan of actually making it happen. And I think that's the future, like this decentralized working for greater good projects as humanity together, across nations, across groups, and just really cooperating instead of competing because we are stuck in this individualistic mindset.
So what would you want to do specifically?
I think for me, the problem with blockchain right now is it's mostly tech-oriented, and we're still stuck in this phase of that it's like the wallflower in the tech world. Like everyone talks about, notices it, but doesn't really know what to think of it or whatever. And I think for me, it's time to make a shift in making it super practical. And I just want to set out to create a lot of open source prototypes and share them with the world. Like the example I gave with the car is a good one, but another example is the thing with the tree. A tree can have a wallet, and our phone will detect based on the geolocation that I'm walking next to a tree, and we'll start donating small money to the tree, and the tree will get a piece of software that it can plant the next tree. I really like this idea because we can give power to nature again that is bigger than us humans, and it could create an insane momentum of incentivizing good things. But it just takes building one template at a time, getting some PR around it, implementing it somewhere, and just let it fly, let the test balloon fly. So I would like to commit myself into launching a lot of these things and finding partners for everything. Like, for example, with the tree, the city of Plovdiv, include them, get some attention around it, and just start experimenting with it here in the park. Or with the car, that like with your previous interview guest from yesterday, like see if at Volvo we can do this with a couple of cars. And just start gathering a partner for each project and maybe launch like 50 of these things. And some will trigger like the first momentum of the blockchain. I think what's important to note is that we are always pushing technology now, but if you ask people what the technology is behind their bank or behind the shop where they do something or whatever, nobody knows these technologies as well. So we need to start making the shift of very hands-on implementations and stop talking about technology. Just start implementing it. I think a lot of people, by the time blockchain is big, will barely realize that blockchain is behind it. They will see cool concepts, and that's how people will start adopting it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think too many people are involved in blockchain are taking that engineer perspective, and there's nobody translating this into human language. Yeah. We always say, is it designed by an engineer or designed by a human?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's also the second thing with blockchain is that because we're stuck in this financial mindset with money constantly, we need to also get to the shift of seeing that the interaction with things is way more valuable than the movement of money. And there are so many small things that we take for granted in this world that actually can be accounted for and can be accumulated to indicate something. Like just us sitting together, our phones should maybe track that we are spending time together. So that at some point in my life, if I need something or I want, I don't know, like social security or God knows what, I can look like who are the 100 people that I spend the most time with who are there for me or that always welcome me or something like that. And I can instantly then tap into that instead of needing to be locked out or something like that. I also saw a movie or a documentary about addiction, and that addiction is about the feeling of being left out or disconnected. I think a lot of the things in the world, they have to do with this feeling of being disconnected. And it's time to start making it transparent how connected you actually are to all the things around you and how much impact you actually have. And if we start seeing this, we start feeling way better about ourselves and about the things that we do for our surroundings. And yeah, I think that's something that needs to happen now. Like we have a lot of egocentric motivation constantly where people want a lot of money or a big house or all these kind of products and status symbols. But they don't matter in the end. In the end, it's all about relations. And if you ask people before they die, like what are their last thoughts? Yeah, it's always about love and connection, and it's never about, oh, I should have bought this bigger boat or all this bullshit that has to do with consumerism. It's always about the connections and valuing the connections that you had and the impact that you made. And I think blockchain is the first technology that really gets this going for everyone in an equal way. That's so I think it's a very, very important technology for us to becoming.
I also really like what you're talking about with just starting these small things and putting them out there in an open source way. It's very grassroots. It's not like an overarching imposing structure like, oh, now, the country of Bulgaria has to at once implement the blockchain. It doesn't have to be like that.
That's the beauty. Like, say, for example, we want to improve our neighborhood and stop buying from these giant supermarket chains that are global chains and they only centralize money. We can start having like this local currency just to buy at local shops and local supermarkets. And then this can just be a group of 1,500 people. So for a big supermarket chain, this is no threat. For a local government, this is no threat because it's just this small grassroots initiative. But the beauty of it is that we can share this technology open source on the web, and another community hundreds of kilometers away can also start using it in parallel. And we don't need money for it, but we just start doing the same things everywhere. And we can adapt it. Every community can just add updates to it and create their own version, share it again with the world. And everywhere these small initiatives start popping up and they start chewing away at the established centralized structures like government or big corporations and so on. Therefore, the wave of transition will not be a wave where it's all of a sudden like a huge big counter movement. No, it's so many little things shifting it that you can barely resist it. There's no central thing to fight. There is no central person to attack or take down or chew at their credibility or whatever because you're against it. No, it's all these local small initiatives that you can barely stop or control. And I think the beauty is that also with centralization, you have centralization in a geographical way, but you also have centralization that the government takes care of maybe 12 aspects of your life. It can be health, the defense, agriculture, economy, whatever. They have like all these departments. But maybe with blockchain technology, I start saying, okay, for my health insurance, I want to join this group. And for my feeling of home or the group I belong to, I want to join this group. And for my laws in regards to God knows what aspect of your life, I want to join this group. And slowly, parts of the things will be eaten away from the traditional routes. And I think that's how it's going to change. It's not going to change with one giant wave. No, it's going to change with very tiny drops everywhere. And the beauty of this new system is just like this mindset of sharing. Like if it can benefit us, just put it out there. Like again, the example with the tree. I hope if I build it, that the next day, 20 people in 20 countries just applied it to a tree in their city. And they get 20 people talking about it. And there's no gain, but it's just about this rapid distribution of putting it into the world. And that's what I really, really like about this mindset of blockchain. Whatever you create, it can benefit others. So put it out there. And if you put it out there, you get rewarded again because all these connections starts building to what you did. It's not about money. It's about seeing the impact that you contribute to others. And that's the beauty.
I like how that mindset strips away a lot of the extra steps that would normally be in place if you started a corporation, started a startup. Like now you just need a small team of a designer, an idea person, an engineer, and you can put these things out. Like what we're talking about with this incubator idea is stripping down all of the things that are unnecessary in these bigger corporate entities and just having rapid prototyping and rapid storytelling to get these things out there and get them marketed properly, but without this money-making scheme behind all of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's also the beauty of creativity in most cases is if you try to force it and we start sitting here and we start drawing on paper like we now need to have a golden idea, it never works out. But if you're under the shower or on the toilet, you have your most creative moments because you're doing something totally different and you're just trying it. There is no limit on how you need to think in such a moment. There is no force on how you need to think. It's just the freedom of letting it roam and start to experiment. I think that's the beauty of an incubator with that freedom, is that you can just try it. There shouldn't be a reasoning behind it already when you start gaining something out of it. It should be about just trying it and seeing how far you can get with it. I think that's a lot of initiatives in the world. They are polluted by this constant need for money or return or a deadline when it will break even or whatever. Now, a lot of things, they are also valuable only when they are together with other things. So I can invent something, just put it in this incubator, and maybe half a year later, another initiative needs actually the solution that was created half a year ago. But half a year ago, I didn't know that we needed it then. But you need to have this random synchronicity of these things coming together and just trying them for the magic to start happening. And that's why it's really important to experiment and not be too much focused on reasoning all the way through until the exit strategy and all this bullshit that startups get indoctrinated with. I think it's polluting. A lot of startups in the US, they get into this cyclic thing of grow big and then sell it. And these founders, they get indoctrinated with this mindset of valuation, and it becomes like this mindset, growth for growth. There is no why behind it of a substantial thing they're adding. I know it sounds a bit negative, but I mean it in the sense like, if I buy at a local farmer's place, I can really feel the passion of his work. I can really sense how he does his business, how he knows all the plans and all these things. And I think with a lot of companies, when they try to gain the world, user-base wise or sales-wise or whatever, they totally lose this identity of why they did it. And it's all about growth for growth. The whole thing gets lost of why things are done. And I think that's what needs to get back. Like, just do it because you feel like it's the right thing to do. And later it will show its value. And I think that's also something like in the art world that interests me a lot. You can do things without them literally needing to have a practical use or needing to have like a fixed reason. You just do it because you feel like you need to do it or express it, or it's a totally different mindset. And I think we're locked in this financial mindset, reasoning-wise.
I like how Luciano explained this, our app developer for the meditation app. He was saying how in the blockchain you can build a piece of the software, like a single contract that has a single function that other people are testing, and then you can just reuse that for all kinds of other applications. Yeah. So every one thing you develop, you only have to develop it once.
Yes.
And you can find examples of this all over the blockchain. So you can kind of build your whole application in chunks. And I really like how that switches the mindset, and you're almost like building on top of the shoulders of giants every time you start a new thing.
This is the future in programming. Like, of course, we had open source already, but with open source, you always had to really adopt like a full project that someone already built. And I think with the blockchain, you really chop it down into very small reusable pieces. And you don't need to be a technology guy to even use these Lego blocks in the future. It's just like these tiny black boxes with an input and an output that you can read in a human format. And basically any problem that you have, you can start dividing into these Lego blocks and look like, is there already a Lego block that fits my input-output? Yes, then I reuse it. And if not, it's a very small task for someone to build it. And the next person that needs it can benefit from it. And then all of a sudden, the knowledge can start growing and we can do way cooler things instead of always reinventing everything ourselves and wasting so much talent and time on doing the same things all over the globe. Exactly. I think we're such a repetitive species in that sense that almost anything that you do, a lot of people are literally doing the same thing. It's pointless.
Yeah, I like these plug-in automation mentality, like if this, then that does the same kind of thing. Put that on the blockchain and people can reuse these blocks of software. That's really cool. But the other thing you said today about expiring like a corporation or an entity, like when the job is done, you disband and you've made the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's also something I think is very interesting, that most things get started and then they have some success and then they get in this mode because they have a certain type of investor or reasoning behind it, that they need to continue it. Say, for example, with a clothing store, someone starts out of the passion of creating this new kind of sweater. It takes off, it becomes a hit. They create a store or whatever. And then it starts growing, they start hiring people. All of a sudden, the founder is not anymore the person selling it and whatever. And the company fades away from how it all started. And then the investors and the accountants and so on, they start reasoning like, okay, next year we need to grow a bit bigger. So we're going to do the same plus 3%. Now, how are we going to sell the same product? Yeah, and last year it was a green sweater, now we're going to do it red. And next year it's going to be pink or whatever. And you just create this cycle of just tiny tweaks or updates to a product instead of really creating or inventing something again. And I think our whole society is in that way kind of polluted with these never-ending stories of ideas that were once good, but that still need to be sold in huge amounts and therefore are pushed down our throats consistently. I think we should focus more on the beauty of temporality, how you call it. And the beauty of that something is just short. And the thing that inspired me in Amsterdam, that was the example that I gave. A club opened and it told up front its closing date within 2 years. And it forces this mentality that it will be gone and it will be something you need to enjoy now. And something, it brings value to it. And I think with a lot of shops and a lot of products and services and whatever, it's fine that they still get used, but they are not shocking anymore. They are not beautiful anymore. They are just small updates from something that once grasped the attention. And we need to find this beauty again in a lot of things. And this beauty starts from trying things, and this beauty starts from just sending it out there and people starting over again. There is no shame in starting over. Like, people think success is this thing of continuing this never-ending story.
You've had the golden idea.
Yeah, the golden idea, and then every year 3%, and within 20 years I'm going to sell it. And no, I think that's a mind-numbing thing to do. If you have the talent to create something and you just perpetuate it for 20 years with a growth of 3%, you're not using your talent. Your talent you should use to start again and create this. And you have so much more to offer to the world than continuing that part that you already brought there.
That's why founders burn out too, because they love the startup creation phase, exactly. And then they're just like, shareholders, meetings, 3%.
Yes. And it's a weird mindset that actually the people that are these creators, that they get forced into this mindset of repetition. And I think we should incentivize people to be more like that. And that's, again, a reason for an incubator to be so free. Just give this platform to these founders, because these founders are probably the people that are going to bring the beauty to the world, and give them all the freedom and facilitate them how they can. And you'll be amazed what comes out of it. And it's also that people need to stop labeling people with a certain talent. So I see a lot of people, if they build, like, for example, a clothing brand, that they get forced by their environment to always be in this clothing niche. Maybe this person is just a really great founder and he could start a fruit company, or he could start a new rock band, like the example you gave with a professional sports player. The thing is, creators are creators, not in a specific subject, but they have this creative mindset that you can apply to any subject. So don't lock them in and give them the freedom to try new things. Maybe they create great music or great art because they just have this experimental trying mindset, and instead of the mindset of repeating things.
It's like what we expect with CEOs. Like, if you play in a band, you're not going to record one album and then keep changing the artwork every year, and that becomes your only job. Like, you're going to make more music ongoing. So why do we expect founders and CEOs to do the exact same thing?
That's a very good analogy, And I think it all has to do with how we think in school. Like, we go to school and we get taught that we need to learn something and then repeat it our whole lives. And we apply the same logic to almost anything. And I think that's a weird thing also in the future that we need to break. It's all about experimenting and trying things. And you cannot do anything wrong if you just keep trying, in my opinion. It's all about, just let things happen and just go with it. Get back this freedom to create.
I think there's momentum with that creativity too. If you've got a group of people just constantly coming up with new ideas and releasing them, and there's no responsibility to make this thing improve this 3% each year, you're just like, okay, it's out there, and other people, like the community and the blockchain, can take it over if they want to and improve it themselves.
And it's also like what I said before, like a lot of ideas, they are a bit ahead of their time. And the ideas, again, then get shut down because they cannot be monetized in that moment, or they cannot be fully accounted for why it should be there. But that shouldn't be a reason why it shouldn't be built already, in my opinion. Like, just get it out there and already put it up for the world, share it, open source it, or whatever you want to do with it. Because someone who is starting out with their idea might Google it and might need exactly what you just created, but you cannot predict it when you created it. But if you just put it out there, you create the building blocks for other people to do great stuff. Maybe there are 7 links in between of all these crazy things that nobody understands. But then some guy in Canada comes up with an idea and he thinks, I need these 7 things. Let's Google if they are there. And he comes exactly at these things. And then all of a sudden the need for these things becomes clear. And this can take 10 years. And there's no shame in just putting it out there for 10 years. You never know who you will inspire or who you empower with what you created. Don't try to predict it. Just believe that the fact that you put it out there is a creation already. Because you could think of it, you could execute on it, and you could put it out there. So now it's already in this sphere of being simply indexed by Google. It's already the first start. So people can start randomly coming up with it. You never know how they get to it. But it starts living, and it starts becoming like an organism, like a baby you created. And it will get momentum in the end.
It could even send micropayments back to each of its components that it uses, and if component ends up being used a lot, like 7 years after its creation.
Yeah, I think this might be in the future that it's about finding these small things where you take some of your knowledge, some of your thinking power, and just defining it in the blockchain. And thereby helping people maybe 100 years after your death still. But it will be recorded, and it will be impactful, and it will still contribute to whatever you want to support. Like we also had this example today that with blockchain we can start building wallets in time. We can say this park here in the city needs to have 4 trees always. And if it detects that there are not 4 trees, it should trigger a message for 4 trees to be planted. And we can program the software to be active only as of 100 years from now. So we can start impacting things, even in the future like that. And it's all about connecting all these things and just contributing your part for the future generations and for anyone else in the planet to do better things and do greater things. Why waste time on doing the same things, all of us? Let's just all do everything once and then continue and build on that. And if we do that with 8 billion people, my goodness, we can do crazy things.
I love that, yeah. Even in business, I'm thinking about how many things we had to start from the ground up and
do the same thing.
Thing that somebody else already did, and it's so repetitive and it's taxing on you.
Yes,
because
it drains your energy.
You only have one life, and you're doing all this redundant stuff.
Yeah. And your unique talent is the creation after you've done all the repetitive tasks. With all the repetitive tasks, you take away so much of your energy to actually get to this. And I think in the future, like also a business is a concept that is outdated. I think for every task you should have like a micro business that just acts for one transaction. Say, for example, you create this artwork for me, or you write this article or whatever. I just set up a business between the 3 of us where we share just for this item that we created together. And now we still have this mindset of setting up a business, and everything I do in a year I bring under this business. And I think this is also a mindset that we need to let go of, that everything needs to be so formal in a fortress behind walls and with permits and all this stuff in place. I think we should think lightly about interacting with each other. I think all these necessary rules that we think are necessary right now, they are just blockages for things that are very simple in nature. I just want to do a transaction with you guys. What's keeping me? Why should I set up all these things in place just to do that? It should become lightweight and therefore also democratic for everyone to start doing it. I think there are so many people who don't feel comfortable starting a business because they heard about the paperwork, they heard about the tax office and the checks and God knows all these things, and they feel fear that this part they cannot do. They are very confident about their own niche or thing or creative idea, but the whole business part around it they don't feel comfortable with. So we should make it as easy as possible and take all those things away. And I think a lot of people would be entrepreneurial. Yeah, I think that's a very important thing in the future. Yeah.
I love thinking about it from the Maslow's hierarchy of need perspective, where you take away all of the crap that people have to do in their daily lives. That's just it's just repetitive, like taking care of their food and clothing and even setting up social interactions. And so they can focus on just self-actualization and doing the things that really bring value to the world.
I think it's also like another example is that transactions are so wasteful with the blockchain that you can divide a salary, for example, in tiny drops of every microsecond during the month. So your salary can come in like every microsecond instead of at one moment in the month. Because the behavior of people now is if how they look at their bank account, their money comes in and it's a high amount on their bank account, they pay rent and then they pay other expenses. They think in this staircase mindset of needing to achieve a high staircase so that they can pay for all the bills that follow it. So you have this mindset of reaching an absolute height constantly. I think with blockchain, you can start shifting this behavior. And if you have the droplets of salary coming in consistently, and on the other hand, you start paying things consistently in microseconds, like your energy bill or whatever, instead of this mindset of seeing a staircase going down, you will start seeing flows that need to be in balance. And you start thinking different about money. And there's no point anymore in having something really high. You're just constantly looking at your bank account, and it could be visualized just as a scale that needs to be in balance. And there's no need to go for the bigger this and the higher that and whatever. It's just about finding the balance between what you input and your output.
What do you think are some of the other business models? Like you mentioned the microtransactions coming off of each contract you create.
Yeah.
There's like there would be another one of crowdfunding and creating a basic income for developers to just constantly be creating new things.
The thing with most people is that they get great ideas in the weirdest moments, but they also realize that they might not be the best possible entrepreneur for it, or they don't have any entrepreneurial experience at all because it's outside of their field or whatever. But they are willing to maybe share that idea and put it on the blockchain and then put a small bounty behind it. Like say, for example, €5 if someone fixes this or this problem for me. And maybe within a month, 2,000 other people all across the world, they will do the same thing. And all of a sudden you will get like this incentive list of problems to fix, where the funding is in place already. It's just a matter of finding an entrepreneur, and you totally shift the landscape around that is existing now, where an entrepreneur needs to find money. Because most entrepreneurs, and this also applies for myself, like I've been in many different industries because I just enjoy the problem fixing. I enjoy the process of tackling something. I don't have a particular passion for a certain industry, but I enjoy this process. So for me, it would be super optimal to just see all these opportunities laying around. And if then the idea with the virtual reality gets combined, we can start listing not only opportunities for businesses, but you can also say we have a lot of minor tasks like swipe the streets or mow this lawn or whatever. And you're just going to put it on there, and people say like 5 people walk through the park and they all contribute 20 cents if the lawn gets mowed. And if you then have a VR or an augmented reality goggle and you just walk to the park and you see literally money laying there or an incentive laying there to start mowing that lawn, you can start applying this to the whole world and just walk around and everywhere see these opportunities where you can contribute something because other people have specified that there is a need for something and they already put in place for people to pick this up. And I think that way you can look differently at work. Now at work we have a specific role for our entire year or whatever. But maybe then going to work is just putting your goggles on and start walking around and start picking up all these needs that people have and start fulfilling them. You can feel needed by mowing the lawn in the first hour of the day. And maybe afterwards you're coding some software and it becomes totally fluid how you contribute and thereby earn money. And you just walk around. And the whole world can become interactive like that. It's a beautiful world.
I think it's amazing because it also makes you feel really connected to the people around you. You're constantly contributing something good to your neighborhood.
Yeah, and then you can see literally if you walk around with augmented reality or virtual reality that you can see the faces of the people that left the money there, and you can see instantly the relation you have to these people. And it's literally like, for example, in the music industry that when you bought a CD, only the producers were thanked, but maybe you should thank all the people buying the music. And maybe with that park, you will literally see a thank you from that park for all the people that contribute to that park. And you can feel like that park is something of you because you once contributed to mowing the lawn, or you once put a bounty there for mowing for the need. And I think that way you will start feeling a responsibility for things around you instead of feeling separated from it and that the municipality needs to take care of this or whatever. It's about connection again.
So speaking of municipalities, how can they get involved? So for example, if a politician or a big investor wants to contribute to something like this, but they just can't get their head around this idea.
Yeah, I think for a government or municipalities, it's about seeing the opportunity that you can actually leverage the willingness and leverage the power of your community instead of seeing it as something that you need to correct for them. Because if you start incentivizing people to fix the problems that you have as a society or a municipality or whatever, people will start picking it up and doing it for you. And there can be a way smaller government than there is now. Or there can be a totally divided government where you have maybe 2 or 3 people who get elected as the park management people who go over the lawnmower selection. I don't know. You can put the need there, but it's only a pool of people that can mow the lawns. I don't know. Like you can create a new kind of government in that sense. But it's also that for investors, I think the financial system as it is, it's not going to be the biggest system anymore in the world. The future is about these connections that we constantly make. And I think the investment that you should now make is to position yourself as early as possible within all these connections. The earlier you are, the more connected a transaction will get. Like if I do a transaction now in the blockchain, this transaction will make so many rounds in the upcoming 5 years. In comparison to a transaction done 5 years from now, I have way more transaction reputation already. So I advise investors to get in early, even if they don't know fully yet that they're going to get a financial reward out of it, but position themselves as the facilitators and the connectors, because in the future you will get a back reference of where you connected, where you made an impact, and that will position yourself to do something. So get in as early as possible. I know the blockchain is still a hype thing for people, but it's all about to change in a very quick time. People are thinking it's going to be something in the far future, but it's going extremely fast. And I honestly think like if banks start falling down or whatever, like you will see quick adoption pretty quickly.
I love this idea that you can be someone who's maybe a little more financially well off and just walk down your street and throw bounties at everything just to improve. Yeah. It's like micro investment in your community.
Yeah, exactly. And in the future, you can also start connecting this to politics, for example, where you might say, okay, we only want people to be representing us as a village or as a city that have a clear reputation of contributing to the city. So start building your reputation, because you might be needing it in the future. Because if you don't bring value to us as a whole, it's difficult to maintain a position in the future. It's very good to start being transparent about it instead of just for a financial gain. It should be about the impact that you make.
Being a politician will change into like a high honor thing that the society bestows upon you. That's it's a badge of honor.
And it's the same like now with big investors that they do it maybe for the capital gains or something like that. I think we need more entrepreneurs and investors that want to show off that they made this park so beautiful instead of that they made €1 million. Like, what's the status about earning €1 million because you outsmarted someone? No, I think there's way more pride to be gained if you can say, hey, I contributed here and I facilitated that this and this could happen and this person could do this and this person could do that. And it will make you feel more needed for the world than anything else. And I think that's in the end what it comes down to. The feeling of happiness is the feeling of belonging and needed and being connected and being loved. And this all starts with getting all these connections going. And it can be super small tasks, but they all matter in the end. Yeah.
I love the idea of governments incentivizing certain things and looking at things as an opportunity rather than a problem that they have to correct.
Yeah.
So if there's a broken path somewhere, instead of looking at it, oh, it's an eyesore, they can put a bounty on it, and then a certain company could come in and fix it, and you could, like you were saying, you could regulate. For example, this company, they have to have fixed at least 50 paths in the past to qualify for this task, so that they have to be good.
Yeah. Exactly. And then also for a municipality, it's about creating opportunity for your citizens instead of monitoring and correcting them. So a government might be something that is loved so much because of it, because it's like this bringer of opportunity. Like you can totally shift around how people look at politics.
It could also be this other element of quality control where there's bounties for people to check that the job was done. Yes. Instead of having to create this complicated software architecture, you could just have, the job was done.
Maybe with also with the supermarket products, that if I buy the coffee, instead of just paying the supermarket, I'm also paying again someone to check that the farmer really was treated well. Also, I don't just buy the product and give a value, but I also apply some logic to the transaction to make sure that I feel good about the transaction.
Right.
And thereby I improve the system for the next buyer and the next buyer. Things like that.
It's a fascinating combination of all these things: augmented reality, laying bounties out, artificial intelligence, interpreting what you want.
It's like Pokemon Go, but then for adding value for humanity and for the people around you.
Exactly.
And you saw how popular Pokemon Go got pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I definitely see an opportunity if you build something like this. And the beauty of it again is you can start so small. It just takes a couple of people to program something and experiment with it. We can try it here in the city. You share it with the world, and it can be implemented everywhere super quickly. And it doesn't take a huge investment. It doesn't take an army. It doesn't take a factory. It's just a laptop, some good ideas, and people really fairly distributing tasks and saying like, hey, I would like if someone did this. I would like if someone did this. And other people really feeling like, hey, I can contribute here because someone appreciates what I do here. And that's also like this feeling of appreciation. Most people, they have a job and they don't feel appreciated. Whereas through this system, you can walk around and appreciation is all around you if you contribute. It makes you feel good and makes you feel happy in your life, I think.
Yeah. Fantastic. So exciting.
Yeah, exciting times. Yeah.
Vince, thanks for joining us. It was really great to have you.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the incubator and all the good things that you guys are going to build. So to the future. Thank you.
All right, that's it for this episode. The show notes will be at futurethinkers.org/episode 33. And if you want to support us, you can go to futurethinkers.org/donate. As always, we very much appreciate reviews and ratings. So if you want to rate us on iTunes or Stitcher or somewhere else that you listen to us, that would be awesome. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.